Across continents, it was as though the world had turned on its head. In the United States, the old order had returned in the most controversial of ways. Donald J. Trump, after years of lawsuits, scandals, and political warfare, had clawed his way back into the White House. His campaign had thrived on fear, nationalism, and the promise of renewed American greatness, a phrase that meant very different things to different people. To some, it was restoration. To others, regression. Meanwhile, on the African continent, a different kind of revolution was unfolding, one rooted in youth, independence, and the long-delayed dream of a truly sovereign Africa. At the center of it all stood Captain Ibrahim Traore, the 38-year-old military officer turned president of Burkina Faso. Charismatic, stoic, and intensely principled, Traore had defied Western conventions from the moment he seized power in a coup d'etat just 5 years earlier. But unlike many before him, he didn't fall into the trap of tyranny. Instead, he rose. He poured national resources into education, clean energy, agriculture, and rebuilding trust with local communities. He expelled foreign mining companies that had drained his country's resources for decades and replaced them with community-run cooperatives. Where previous African leaders tiptoed around Western diplomats, Traore spoke boldly, naming imperialism for what it was and calling for unity among African nations. For millions of young Africans, he became a symbol. For Western powers, a problem. The breaking point came not from a battlefield or a backdoor negotiation, but from words spoken in public, broadcast across the world, words that would shake the global order. The stage was set in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital, where a massive crowd had gathered under the scorching sun. Thousands of young men and women, draped in the colors of their flag, chanted Traore's name. Journalists from every major network, CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, France 24, stood at attention, cameras rolling. Captain Ibrahim Traore, dressed in his signature military fatigues, stepped forward. His eyes scanned the crowd before settling on the teleprompter. He had prepared this speech for months. "Brothers and sisters of Africa," he began, his voice steady but carrying the weight of history. "For centuries we have been told what we cannot do. We have been told that our destiny is not ours to control, that our resources are not ours to keep, that our borders are lines drawn by others, for others." The crowd roared. "But today I stand before you to say, no more." He paused, letting the words sink in. The time for Africa's true independence is now. Then came the words that would send shockwaves through Washington, Paris, and Brussels. Effective immediately, Burkina Faso will no longer recognize the CFA franc as our currency. We will no longer allow foreign forces to dictate our economic policies. We will no longer accept the theft of our gold, our uranium, our labor, while our people starve. The announcement was seismic. The CFA franc, a colonial-era currency still used across West and Central Africa, was backed by France. It was a symbol of lingering economic control, one that Traore had just shattered. "To my fellow African leaders," he continued, "I say this: join us. Let us build our own monetary union. Let us trade with one another, not through the banks of foreign powers, but through our own. Let us be free." The speech lasted 20 minutes. By the end, social media was ablaze. Hashtags like #AfricaRising and #Traore. The lion trended worldwide. In Paris, officials scrambled for a response. In Washington, Trump's national security team called an emergency meeting. And in a private room in Ouagadougou, Traore turned to his closest advisor and said, "Now we wait." The White House was in chaos. Donald Trump, seated in the Oval Office, glared at the television screen where Traore's face was frozen mid-speech. "Who the hell does this guy think he is?" Trump muttered. His advisors exchanged glances. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo cleared his throat. "Sir, this is bigger than just Burkina Faso. If other African nations follow suit, then we lose control," Trump finished. "I didn't come back to this damn office to watch some third world captain take a piss on American interests." Meanwhile, in Paris, President Emmanuel Macron was livid. The CFA franc was France's last economic foothold in its former colonies. If Burkina Faso's defiance spread, Decades of influence would crumble overnight. "We cannot allow this," Macron told his cabinet. "We will freeze their assets, cut off aid, make them crawl back." But Traore had anticipated this.